Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. The house stood silent, a stark contrast to the bustling energy that once filled its rooms. A lone figure sat motionless on the couch, staring at a framed photograph on the coffee table. Ethan's eyes were fixed on the smiling faces of his father and sister, frozen in time. The weight of their absence pressed down on his chest, making it hard to breathe. It had been 3 months since the accident that took his sister's life, and barely a year since his father's battle with cancer had ended. The creak of floorboards announced his mother's presence before she appeared in the doorway. Margaret's face was etched with the same sorrow that Ethan felt, her eyes red-rimmed from countless nights of crying. "Honey, I made some lunch. Would you like to eat something?" Ethan shook his head without looking up. "I'm not hungry, Mom." Margaret sighed, crossing the room to sit beside her son. She placed a gentle hand on his back, rubbing small circles as she had done when he was a child. "I know it's hard, sweetheart. I miss them, too." For a long moment, they sat in silence, both lost in their own thoughts. The tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway seemed to echo through the empty house, a constant reminder of the passage of time. Finally, Ethan spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think it ever gets easier?" Margaret pulled him close, resting her chin on top of his head. "I don't know if it gets easier, but we learn to carry it. We have to keep living, for them and for ourselves." Ethan nodded against her shoulder, feeling the sting of tears in his eyes. He allowed himself to cry, something he had been holding back for weeks. His mother's arms tightened around him, her own tears falling silently. As the afternoon light began to fade, they remained on the couch, finding comfort in each other's presence. The house may have felt empty, but they still had each other. Days turned into weeks, and life slowly began to find a new rhythm. Ethan returned to his job at the local bookstore, while Margaret threw herself into her work as a high school English teacher. They moved through their routines like actors on a stage, going through the motions without truly engaging with the world around them. One evening, as Ethan was heading to his room, he paused outside his sister's closed door. Emma's room had remained untouched since the accident, neither he nor his mother having the heart to go through her things. But tonight, something drew him to the doorknob. With a deep breath, he turned the handle and stepped inside. The scent of Emma's favorite perfume still lingered in the air, and for a moment, Ethan felt as if she might walk in at any second. He moved slowly around the room, running his fingers over her possessions, books she'd loved, trinkets from vacations, photos of friends and family. His gaze fell on her closet, the doors slightly ajar. Without thinking, he walked over and pulled them open fully. Emma's clothes hung neatly, a rainbow of colors and fabrics. Ethan reached out, touching the soft material of a floral dress she had worn to their cousin's wedding last summer. Something stirred within him, a feeling he couldn't quite name. He found himself pulling the dress off its hanger, holding it up to his body. The fabric felt cool against his skin, and he was struck by a sudden urge to try it on. Glancing nervously at the closed bedroom door, Ethan quickly stripped off his t-shirt and jeans. With trembling hands, he slipped the dress over his head, adjusting it until it fell into place. He turned to look in the full-length mirror on the back of the door, his breath catching in his throat. The dress hugged his body in a way that felt both foreign and oddly right. He smoothed his hands down the sides, marveling at how the fabric felt against his skin. For the first time in months, a small smile tugged at the corners of his mouth. Ethan spent the next hour trying on various pieces from Emma's wardrobe. Each item seemed to awaken something within him, a part of himself he had never known existed. As he twirled in front of the mirror, wearing a flowing skirt and blouse, he felt a sense of freedom and joy that had been missing since the accidents. A soft knock at the door startled him out of his reverie. "Ethan, are you in there?" Panic surged through him as he heard his mother's voice. Yeah, Mom, just a minute." He frantically began to remove the clothes, his heart pounding in his chest. But in his haste, he stumbled, knocking over a stack of books on Emma's desk. "Ethan, is everything okay?" Margaret's voice was laced with concern. Before he could respond, the door opened, and his mother stepped into the room. Ethan froze, still wearing the skirt and blouse, his face flushed with embarrassment and fear. Margaret's eyes widened as she took in the scene before her. For a moment, neither of them spoke, the silence stretching between them like a chasm. Finally, Ethan found his voice. "Mom, I can explain." To his surprise, Margaret's expression softened. She closed the door behind her and took a step towards him. "Oh, honey, you don't have to explain anything." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes as he struggled to find the right words. "I don't know why it just felt..." Margaret crossed the room and pulled him into a tight embrace. "It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay." As Ethan cried into his mother's shoulder, he felt a weight lift from his chest. The fear of judgment and rejection melted away, replaced by a profound sense of relief and acceptance. When they finally pulled apart, Margaret cupped Ethan's face in her hands, wiping away his tears with her thumbs. "You look beautiful, you know." A small laugh escaped Ethan's lips, mingling with a sob. "Really?" Margaret nodded, her eyes shining with love and understanding. "Really? And if this is something you want to explore, I'm here for you, every step of the way." In that moment, surrounded by his sister's belongings and wrapped in his mother's unconditional love, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope for the future. The road ahead might be uncertain, but he knew he wouldn't have to walk it alone. Over the next few weeks, Ethan began to cautiously explore this newfound aspect of himself. With his mother's encouragement, he started wearing some of Emma's clothes around the house. At first, it felt strange and slightly uncomfortable, but as time passed, he found himself growing more confident and at ease. One evening, as they sat in the living room, Ethan wearing a soft sweater and leggings that had once belonged to his sister, Margaret broached a subject that had been on her mind. "Honey, I've been thinking," she began, setting aside the book she had been reading. "Have you considered that this might be more than just an interest in clothing?" Ethan looked up from his laptop, his brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" "I wonder if you might be experiencing something called gender dysphoria. It's when someone feels that their gender identity doesn't match the sex they were assigned at birth." A mixture of emotions flickered across Ethan's face. Surprise, confusion, and something that looked a lot like recognition. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it that way." "It's just a possibility," Margaret said gently. "But if it's something you want to explore further, there are resources available. Support groups, therapists who specialize in gender identity issues. We could look into it together if you'd like." Ethan was quiet for a long moment, processing this new information. The idea that there might be a name for what he was feeling, that there might be others who had experienced similar things, was both exciting and terrifying. I think I'd like that," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Margaret smiled, reaching out to squeeze his hand. "Then that's what we'll do. Whatever you need, whatever path you choose to take, I'm here for you." As they sat together on the couch, the TV playing softly in the background, Ethan felt a surge of gratitude for his mother's unwavering support. The journey ahead might be challenging, but with her by his side, he felt ready to face whatever came next. The following weeks were a whirlwind of research, appointments, and self-discovery. Ethan and Margaret spent hours online, reading articles and watching videos about gender identity and transition. They found a support group in their area for transgender individuals and their families, and Ethan nervously attended his first meeting. To his surprise and relief, he found a community of people who understood what he was going through. Hearing their stories, seeing the happiness and confidence they had found in embracing their true selves, gave Ethan hope for his own future. With the guidance of a therapist who specialized in gender identity issues, Ethan began to explore his feelings more deeply. He started to experiment with pronouns, asking his mother and a few close friends to use she/her when referring to him in private. The first time Margaret called Ethan she, it felt like a key turning in a lock. Something clicked into place, and tears of joy sprang to her eyes. It was as if she was hearing her true name for the first time, even though she hadn't chosen a new one yet. As Ethan became more comfortable with her identity, she and Margaret decided it was time to take the next step. They made an appointment with an endocrinologist to discuss the possibility of hormone replacement therapy. The day of the appointment arrived, and Ethan found herself fidgeting nervously in the waiting room. She was wearing a simple sundress and sandals, her hair styled in a way that softened her features. Margaret sat beside her, holding her hand and offering silent support. "Ethan?" the nurse called, and they both stood. The doctor, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, greeted them warmly. "Hello, Ethan. I'm Dr. Patel. I understand you're here to discuss hormone therapy options?" Ethan nodded, her throat suddenly dry. "Yes, that's right. I think I'm transgender. I want to transition to living as a woman full-time." Dr. Patel smiled encouragingly. "Thank you for sharing that with me, Ethan. It takes a lot of courage to take this step. Let's talk about what that process might look like for you." Over the next hour, Dr. Patel explained the effects of hormone therapy, the timeline for changes, and the potential risks and benefits. She answered Ethan's questions patiently, addressing concerns about fertility, chest development, and emotional changes. As the appointment drew to a close, Dr. Patel looked at Ethan seriously. "This is a big decision, and it's not one to be taken lightly. I'd like you to take some time to think about everything we've discussed. If you decide this is the right path for you, we can start you on a low dose of estrogen and anti-androgens. We'll monitor your progress closely and adjust as needed." Ethan felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as she left the office, a folder full of information clutched in her hands. The possibility of physically transitioning was both thrilling and daunting. On the drive home, Margaret glanced over at her child. "How are you feeling, sweetie?" Ethan took a deep breath. "Overwhelmed, I think, but also hopeful. It's a lot to process." Margaret reached over to squeeze Ethan's hand. "Take all the time you need. There's no rush to make a decision, and whatever you choose, I'm here for you." As they pulled into the driveway of their home, Ethan turned to her mother. "Mom, I think I want to choose a new name, something that feels more like me." Margaret's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled brightly. "Of course, honey. Did you have something in mind?" Ethan nodded slowly. "I was thinking Anna. It was Emma's middle name, and I've always loved it." For a moment, Margaret was quiet, emotions playing across her face. Then she leaned over and pulled Ethan into a tight hug. "Anna, it's perfect." From that day forward, Ethan became Anna. It was a gradual process, starting with close friends and family, then expanding to include work and other social circles. There were moments of confusion and the occasional slip-up, but for the most part, people were supportive and understanding. Anna decided to start hormone therapy, beginning with a low dose, as Dr. Patel had suggested. The changes were subtle at first: softer skin, a slight redistribution of body fat. But as the weeks turned into months, Anna began to see herself emerging in the mirror. There were challenges, of course. Anna faced discrimination and misunderstanding from some quarters. She lost a few friends who couldn't accept her transition. But for every setback, there were moments of triumph and joy. The first time Anna went out in public presenting fully as a woman was a milestone. She and Margaret had spent the morning carefully selecting an outfit, doing her makeup, and styling her growing hair. As they walked through the local mall, Anna felt a mix of anxiety and exhilaration. A group of teenage girls passed by, and one of them smiled at Anna. "I love your dress," she said casually before moving on. Anna felt tears prick at her eyes. It was such a small thing, but it meant the world to her. She was being seen as she truly was. As they sat in the food court enjoying a celebratory lunch, Margaret reached across the table to take Anna's hand. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart. You've come so far." Anna smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I couldn't have done it without you, Mom. Thank you for everything." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, both reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. The loss of Emma and Anna's father still ached, a pain that would never fully disappear. But in the face of that tragedy, they had found strength in each other and in Anna's journey to self-discovery. As they left the mall, Anna caught sight of their reflection in a store window. She saw mother and daughter walking arm in arm, faces alight with love and understanding. For the first time in a long while, Anna felt truly at peace with herself and her place in the world. The future stretched out before her, full of possibilities. There would be more challenges to face, more milestones to achieve. But Anna knew that with her mother by her side and the strength she had found within herself, she could face anything. As they drove home, the setting sun painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Anna felt a sense of hope and excitement for what lay ahead. She was Anna now, truly and completely, and she was ready to embrace all that life had to offer. In the months that followed, Anna continued to blossom. Her confidence grew alongside the physical changes brought about by hormone therapy. She started to experiment more with fashion and makeup, developing a style that was uniquely her own. One Saturday morning, as Anna stood in front of her mirror, carefully applying eyeliner, she called out to her mother, "Mom, can you come here for a sec?" Margaret appeared in the doorway, a basket of laundry balanced on her hip. "What is it, sweetie?" Anna turned, a nervous smile on her face. "I was thinking maybe it's time for a haircut, something more feminine." Margaret's face lit up. "Oh, Anna, that's a wonderful idea. I know just the place. My friend Rachel owns a salon downtown. She's very LGBT friendly. I'm sure she'd love to help you find a style that suits you." That afternoon, they found themselves at Sheer Delight, Rachel's salon. The space was warm and inviting, with soft music playing and the scent of hair products in the air. Rachel, a vivacious woman in her 40s with bright blue hair, greeted them warmly. "Margaret, it's so good to see you, and this must be Anna. Welcome, sweetie." As Anna settled into the salon chair, Rachel ran her fingers through Anna's hair, assessing its texture and length. "So what kind of look are we going for today?" Anna bit her lip, suddenly unsure. I'm not really sure. Something feminine, but not too drastic? I'm still getting used to everything." Rachel nodded understandingly. "How about we start with some long layers to frame your face? It'll soften your features and give you some versatility. We can always go shorter next time if you want." For the next hour, Rachel worked her magic. She cut, styled, and even added some subtle highlights to Anna's hair. As she spun the chair around for the big reveal, Anna gasped. The person staring back at her from the mirror looked right. The soft layers framed her face perfectly, making her eyes look bigger and her cheekbones more pronounced. For the first time, Anna truly saw herself as she had always felt inside. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned to her mother. Margaret was already crying, her hands clasped over her mouth. "Oh, Anna, you look beautiful." Rachel beamed, clearly pleased with her work. "What do you think, honey? Is this the Anna you've been waiting to see?" Anna nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. She stood and hugged Rachel tightly, whispering a heartfelt, "Thank you." As they left the salon, Anna felt as though she was walking on air. She kept catching glimpses of herself in store windows, marveling at the transformation. It wasn't just the haircut. It was the joy and confidence radiating from within her. That evening, as they sat on the porch swing, enjoying the warm summer air, Margaret turned to her daughter. "You know, I've been thinking, we should have a celebration." Anna looked at her curiously. A celebration? For what? Margaret smiled, taking Anna's hand in hers. For you, sweetheart. For your journey, your bravery, for becoming who you truly are. We could invite your support group friends, some family members who have been supportive. Just a small gathering to mark this new chapter in your life. Anna felt a warmth spread through her chest. The idea of celebrating her transition, of being surrounded by people who loved and accepted her, was incredibly appealing. That sounds wonderful, Mom. Thank you. As they began to plan the party, Anna reflected on how far she had come. Thanks for watching. Check out Patreon if you want to have early access to the other parts. If not, it will be online in a couple of days.